Good morning, everybody. John Spielka here from GAI Insights, where we are going to give you the Gen AI news briefing, rating your top news, essential, important, or optional, putting thoughts in your head and time in your day. We have Tim Andrews today as our special guest, Adam, the tech wizard Rappaport, and Luda Kopakina, the deep technical expert, as well as business executive. Okay, we've got 7 interesting articles today. We're going to go into what we can do here in terms of, here we go. Let me get at the first one, which is about Crocs. What Crocs is doing is they are using AI here. Fantastic little thing. In your Crocs shoes, these little things on top are called, let's see here, gibbets.
Yep.
Gibbets charms. And you can see one right here. In Crocs, the multi-billion-dollar, clothing and footwear organization has used generative AI to help individuals create their gibbets charms. And they say they've grown revenue 4% of last year. What do you think here, Tim?
I think this is interesting, but I'm going to say this is optional, even though we like use cases. It's just, there's just absolutely no detail. It's a good business model. So maybe I could lean towards important because it's an interesting collaborative business model, but they're using generative AI to enable these gibbets creations that you can then stuff into your Crocs. Okay, that's great. So there is some generative AI here, but it's in the background. It's really about the business model. The interesting thing is that they're using blockchain, and this I've always said would be one reasonable use of a blockchain, which is attribution of content creation. So the creators of these little jewels can plunk them on a blockchain and then potentially make money off them, and other people can remix them and such, and you can track all the provenance. So that's kind of interesting, but nothing to do with generative AI.
All right, we got I think on the fence headed toward optional. What do you think here, Adam?
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree towards Tim. I was on the fence probably between optional and important. It's important for companies to consider the ways they can start integrating generative AI into their marketing and into their end user customer engagement and into their products. We're definitely moving very quickly to this world where you can give the customer what they want in a lot of ways. We're certainly not far off from, what was it, Redbubble, where you can take your photo and upload it and have them send you a T-shirt, right? And with the onset of generative AI, it's an extension of that. But there isn't too much here. I think I agree with Tim on that one. I would have loved to see more numbers or metrics or details around the solution. It was just a bit light.
All right, Luda, Paul, where are you guys coming out?
Yeah, I'm coming out on optional for the same reasons as Adam and Tim said. I like revenue enhancing Gen AI uses, and so in this case, this is a perfect, as the name of the article suggests. It's a perfect case, right? And so the more in every company, there is a perfect case of revenue enhancing opportunities. So I think the technology is mature enough to be able to deliver on those. And so I think the significance of this, if we go important, is to highlight that there are cases to be had to generate revenue, not just performance improvement.
Yeah, I actually was on important headed toward essential on this one because for a number of reasons. First of all, just as somebody who's done a lot of presentations and so forth, this would definitely make it into any presentation. I said, who would have thought you'd use generative AI to increase revenue in a plastic shoe company? I mean, my goodness, And then in terms of the ability for mass customization, revenue enhancement, new use of brands, to me, it's at least important. I don't know, Paul, where are you?
Yeah, John, I'm 100% with you, at least important here. I think the other thing is this shows broad thinking on how to think about your product differently. And we saw that earlier last year where Coke was having customer generated content that got into things. So this notion that everyone in your node now is carrying around the Hollywood studio in their pocket and can interact with your brand, and there's a revenue enhancement here, and if you can do it with the plastic shoe company, you can do it with insurance and a whole bunch of other companies here. So John, I was definitely on important for the breadth of imagination and the widening of the aperture of revenue opportunities.
All right, we're heading for important. All right, get that one if you would, Adam. All right,
Well,
Matt.
John, before you leave, do you own Gibbets? Do you have a Gibbet?
I don't, but I'm going to go get one and start hacking around with them. Actually, I was thinking about we have to put our brand on Gibbets just to kind of make a point. So I'm going to get some Crocs and get some GAI Gibbets out there.
That sounds
there
good.
we go.
Give them away at the conference.
I have a whole bunch, so I was thinking of going and designing one for sure.
Awesome.
Adam, that is a great idea. We're in talks right now to having Crocs present at the conference. So having some GAI Gibbets and shoes is a fantastic idea.
Yeah. Got a nice ring to it also.
I think we got to get there. Okay. Let's see here. You've got the MIT Sloan Management Review coming up.
I lost this screen share, John. I don't know about others.
No, I don't. Just a second.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Here we are. And here we have the MIT Management School, Sloan Management School, and it's about using generative artificial intelligence. You can see why it matters up front here. Tips, build out data infrastructure, incentivize workers, and define success. Seems pretty straightforward. Our friends I won't say our friends at MIT are masters of the obvious, but what do you think here, Loda?
Yeah, I rated it as optional. This is essentially a summary of the comments of MIT Sloan professor Daniel Lee on a panel that talked about how AI will change the work environment, right? So there are a couple of points that she highlighted. So they determined what AI success would look like. Make investments in data infrastructure and pool data across organizations. We've highlighted this many, many times in different settings that it's important to get your data layer in shape and incentivize your workforce to collaborate with AI. That was interesting. Essentially helping to create those RAGs or data pools that would teach models and then incentivize the workforce to do so. So you're right. You're right, John. There's nothing interesting or very, very new in this article, but it summarizes the main points. But it's optional for me.
Yes, one time I was teaching and somebody said something like this, we definitely have to have a plan that, aligns with our goals and objectives and, isn't overly ambitious so we have failure and so forth. And I was in kind of an ornery mood. So I said, and this was just after someone had done a fantastic analysis. This is in class. And so I said, Mr. Williams, I said, the obverse of what you just said is nonsensical. Therefore, what you said is content free. Do you have any analysis for us? Anyway, class kind of. Anyway, so yes, I think the opposite of this article is nonsensical. Let's make it optional. Anyway, I'm headed there fast. Anybody gonna stop me? Anybody gonna stop me? I work for Doggy now. Doge. Sorry, nobody's gonna stop me. All right, next. Kara Swisher calls it Doggy, which I kind of like. All right. We've got the ML Gym, a new framework that is for evaluating these different new advanced AI research agents, which actually I have a Forbes article coming out later today on the one from Google. So this, I think, is a very interesting thing. There are a number of these deep research agents, especially in science. Adam, what'd you think?
It's good to be aware of. It's a nice benchmark as it describes there. It's 13 diverse and open-ended AI research tasks. So it's really, forgive the pun, but putting these models to task on research and giving a good benchmark for that. it could be considered important because the concept of using these models for research is very important. And yeah, in this PDF, a bit down, there's a graph that shows the cost and the performance effectively, which I think is probably one of the more valuable within it. If you want to keep scrolling, you'll probably find that shortly. The raw performance scores, which they do show as well, mostly point towards 3.5 Sonnet and OpenAI's O1 model as being the leaders. It's further down, actually. It's 7 something. Yeah, we're getting close. There you go. But this is really significant, which is the average API cost and the performance. You can start to see that there are certainly things other than just the performance for a research benchmark that come into consideration. So I think this might be important to take note of. But in some ways, it's a new benchmark, and none of them, I think, are actually performing all that well yet. Which sort of like the one recently on coding, is probably one of the bigger takeaways as well. Is that these things are not the end all be all yet in solving these problems. You're on mute, John.
Are you on optional or important? I couldn't quite tell.
Probably leaning towards important.
All right, we got leaning toward important. All right, Tim, where are you on this?
I could be arm twisted into important. It's research. It's good research, and I'm all in favor of any research that helps evaluation processes, which I beat the table about a lot. It's not earth-shattering. It is meta, again, leading the pack here. It's open source, so it's lots of good features, and it's literally meta, which is the best thing about it. So in other words, they created a framework for testing rather than tests. So they have some tests here, but the more important thing to me here is that there's a standardized framework into which you can insert tests. There's still a lot to do because we don't really know. I mean, you were a college business school professor. How do you grade papers? How do you decide what good writing is? How do you decide whether an agent has performed an analysis well? So there's still big questions, but this at least makes it easier to ask those questions. So I think I'm all in favor of it. For an AI leader, is it worth the read? Yeah, maybe not. Because it is still research, and there's a long ways to go to get to the point where you can say, okay, I need one of these.
Yeah, but I am actually, Tim, firmly in an important camp for slightly different reason. As we evolve into agents, the framework for evaluating, especially autonomous, right? That everybody wants to have autonomous agents. We are very far from it. But to evaluate the quality of output is a critical task that, as this article points out, is not quite there. There are frameworks and tests developed, but they are patchy. And so the bibliography and the discussion about other frameworks that are out there and what you can rely on is very important here. So for that reason, I think the leader needs to be aware that this is a developing field. This is what it is at the moment, and it needs to get better to really work with the agents. So this is an area that people need to really pay attention to.
Yeah, I was more in your camp, Luda, which is like I think a lot of people are going to start using these deep research capabilities. You could take this framework and take it to the deep research things that aren't necessarily academically focused. And I think in a certain way, these are the new testing protocols that are being used in the semantic, area. And I think this particular area, Paul's been doing a lot of research with experts. I was reading a blog this morning that went to 19 different experts, and they're looking at the deep research output, and people are grading this thing as at least intern level and maybe even professional level in terms of the quality that's coming out. So I think they're going to get rapid adoption in many industries and many functions within even any industry. So I was going to give it important. Paul, you okay with important if we head there?
Absolutely. And for people who weren't on our learning lab last night, deep researchers use these models was part of the discussion. I thought one of the really interesting part of the discussion was we have kind of standard models, reasoning models, and deep research models of what we're talking about here. But also these can be pointed on the open internet for research, but also can be pointed at your own data. So this whole concept that we've got these robots researching out there for your own data as well as internet is a really important concept for AI leaders. So important.
Right, and in the fields where there's quite a bit of advancement and where the foundation models can actually make a serious impact, like software development, there's still a lot of questions of how do you evaluate the output, what is the truth, and how do you encode it? And these type of frameworks are absolutely critical to be able to move forward. So I just think it will impact a lot of areas.
I'll mute again, John.
Sorry, I said, okay, so we're going to land on important. Now we're coming on to, in terms of the last article, this Rise of Artificial Intelligence at JP Morgan in the Wall Street Journal. This is one of those articles that I can't decide if it was written by incompetence or it was denuded of anything interesting by their legal and regulatory and risk people. In any event, not to prejudice this, but what do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I'm sort of there with you, but I'm going to say at least important anyway, because it's JP Morgan, and because they do say that more than half of their employees are using this on average 2 hours a week. That's just that one statistic is worth the article's incompetence beyond that.
Okay.
And so I think, you talk about wanting to make your case. It's like, look, this is one of the biggest institutions of the world. They have 200,000 plus employees. They have half of them already using Gen AI a couple hours a week. You're behind if you're not taking this stuff more seriously. So I think again, as an article, it's really awful. It's about as high level as you can get, but it's JP Morgan, and at least they claim they've really got it embedded into their workforce already. So that's important.
All right. So we're going on brand and a few factoids to save this from the bin of obscurity. What do you think, Adam?
I wouldn't object to important. I think Tim's points have merit. I probably leave it at that. It's just it feels so light. Other than literally that one paragraph with the two sentences in it, you could probably pass on the whole article. But for those two sentences and being able to say those are about JP Morgan, it's arguably worthwhile to highlight.
Well, I don't know. I was optional on this article for the reasons that you all highlighted. However, now listening to this, and it does go through the philosophy or approach that they've taken. So the chief, the lady, what's her name? So she's not a techie. She has been given this task, and so and I think this is just a summary by a bot of an interview with her, and that's why it's so kind of very strange feeling, right? But it's really what she's talking about is philosophy of JP Morgan to actually get it out there in the hands of people that matter, start really incentivize them to use it, and then use the where it's most helpful, sort of learn iteratively. And it seems like it's working. So from that perspective, it might be worth and important.
All right, we're headed to important.
Let me be contrarian and then make the case for essential. I think Teresa is exactly the type of AI leader that we want to find and support. So I think first and foremost, one, she's working for a CEO who gets it. Two, the CEO appointed her. Three, they have 2/3 of their company employees have access to secure employee chatbots. 200,000 of the 300,000 here. 99% of the companies I'm dealing with, they still don't have more than 10%. And I was on a call earlier this week with a company with 300,000 employees, and they are absolutely happy with the 600 who have access to 600 out of 30,000, Adam, have access to Microsoft Copilot, and they aren't going to buy any more until Microsoft drops its price here. and they don't care about shadow IT. So I think from an AI leader who needs support on 2/3 that, on CEO support, and articles like this, which help attract and retain AI talent and be known for employee brand that's embracing this, I argue for essential.
I wouldn't argue. I mean, I said at least important, and that's exactly what I was thinking, Paul. Mm-hmm.
All right. You're not worried about grade inflation here, Paul, huh? All right.
Yeah.
All right, I can bet.
We can give it 2 grades, you know, the importance to the AI leader and the content form and substance, and we can give it an A on one and an F on the other.
Well, as a guy who's done a zillion evaluations, academic and otherwise, whatever grading system you have, people want to mess with. All right, we're going to go for essential on this one. All right. Adam, if you could give us essential, and let's see, our next article is about how experts have been stunned by the OpenAI deep research. It's a blog post or a Substack post by Tim Lee over at Understanding AI. And what he did here, I thought was pretty clever. He went and had 19 different folks use Google OpenAI on a domain that they were expert in, something that Paul's been doing as well. And here's, you can see the preferences in terms of Google being in the minority. OpenAI is winning that. But this was kind of fun too. This is about how, what rank would you give it in terms of status of the person doing the work, entry-level work or experienced professionals? I mean, look at this thing. You have 11 actually coming back as, experienced professionals, and then saving more than 10 hours is in the green, less than 5 is in the red. So, pretty interesting, I think, here. What'd you think, Luda?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, but I actually gave it an optional. It's a little clarification. So what he did, he actually asked people to submit complex cases that he then ran through first OpenAI, deep thinking, deep research, and then Google's version, and compared the results. So some of those were very detailed. For example, create a building code checklist for 100,000 square feet educational building, which is non-trivial. And the deep research came out with a checklist of 15,000 words or something, 15,000 word checklist, right? So quite impressive. And it was at the level of the professional doing this task. But I think this is now known that these models can do this. So I'm not sure. On top of that, and also when he ran it through Google, the results were, and then send it to the people to evaluate, not telling them whether it was OpenAI or Google. The preference was in OpenAI for sure, and 83% or so. So it is, it's interesting, but I didn't find anything new here.
Wow, it's interesting. Luda, I have a completely opposite point of view on this one. I was going to rate it essential, and what you said about everybody knows this. Paul and I have been doing, different phone calls and Zoom meetings and so forth, and we haven't found anybody people who should know better, like people running research companies, people running insight companies. They are not aware of these deep research models.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I live in a couple of organizations full super smart Ivy League professionals, and I would bet less than 3% of them are aware of this stuff.
That's a very good point. Yeah, we are.
Yeah, if you go into tech companies and companies like us who are into this stuff every day, okay, everybody knows about it. And I think tech companies know about it primarily because they're tech companies, so they're full of nerds. And coding is also the leading edge of this stuff. But I think if you go into any professional services organization full of smart people, or any high-end scientific organization, pharma companies, biotech companies, healthcare companies, they have no clue. They sort of know what ChatGPT is, but they have no clue about this deep research stuff.
Good point. I agree.
And
All right.
I do think it's essential. I agree. I think they could, because they need this. Again, there's a learning curve here. As you well know, John, being a business school professor, there's a huge learning curve here. And you need to get started on that learning curve as soon as possible. That's the big point for me.
All right, Adam, Paul, we're heading toward essential here. What do you think?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was leaning towards Luda's side of things. And I think it's right. I'm probably a bit I guess jaded and sitting in a bit of a bubble as well, and don't really see the perspective. But when I read it, and I was like, only 7 out of 19 thought it was near the level of a professional. Like that thought, to me was, oh, look, these research models aren't really at the level people think they are. But I mean, when you step back and you think about exactly like you're saying, the number of people who've never even tried one of these and still have no idea they're out there, I'm not sure I would push for essential myself, but I wouldn't object to it. I think it's probably important that they're across it. But
All right, Paul, I'm feeling the power. I'm feeling the power of the chalk here. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm 100% essential here. There's regular reasoning, deep reasoning here. When you show this to executive, they can see it. They're blown away. I'm doing a TED talk tomorrow in Boston about why AI is coming after $100,000 plus jobs, and this is a major reason why. And AI leaders need to know this. And to John's point, I don't use a person's name, but a person who's been running research for 30 years gave me his outline of a research report in data centers that he was going to pay someone 2.5, doesn't matter, he's going to pay himself 2.5 weeks worth of work to do. And Tim, I put it in OpenAI and I said, does this help? And he thought and he's been doing research for 30 years. He had no idea. I think the other thing that's so confusing is there's so many different models, O1, 03, deep, not deep, mini, kind of medium. So it just gets lost. And even we're in the headquarters. So I'm a double.
User interfaces need lots of improvement. There's a lot of confusion. User interface at every level, the particular tools, and then the overall industry sector and usage. That's why I think this article is good, because it sort of just gets to the point. Just, hey, you think it's bad that only 7, but that's 7 people at professional level, right? Not just like interns, but at like, I would consider this experienced professional capability. That's an incredible achievement. That is just unbelievable, right? That is, what all the naysayers are saying, well, you're never going to get to the point where you can do professional work. We're already there. We barely started.
Yeah.
I guess
Okay. I am sold. Let's do essential.
We had an article, I think it was last week, about the problems with these reasoning models as well, and the ones that do deep research. And the fact is, if 1 out of 99 pieces of information is a hallucination or it's invalid, you have to go and fact check and look through everying in there. And so to say that these things are amazing and we can just let them do the work now, like we do need to walk back a little bit from that. And I think bear in mind that they're not there yet, really.
Yeah, exactly.
We had this discussion just last night. That's what I asked Alden last night. It's going to get
moving right along. 2 more articles.
All righty.
Thanks, John.
Okay. All right, here we have our friends at VentureBeat with MongoDB aiming to solve the problem with advanced re-rankers and embedding the problem of hallucination. So let's see. On this one, we had Adam. What'd you think? And if you could give us a brief thing, that would be great. We're trying to
I'll keep it super brief. I think this is optional news. The idea of using re-rankers to make sure that the results you get out of RAG are accurate is very important, but lots of people do it. MongoDB is trying to do a little bit of catch up, and they bought a company that now gives them that ability. So I think this is optional news.
It's a product, definitely, our product acquisition announcement, I think definitely optional.
All righty. So we're looking at optional. All right. So we're going to stop on that guy, and we'll go for the last article here, which is Claude's Extended Thinking. Just a second. And let me present our friend Claude. All right, here we have the whole notion of Claude's extended thinking, and there's some examples in here. You can actually see how it does its process. And what did you think here, Timothy?
I'm between important and essential. It's a little bit techy, and it's a product announcement, but this is one of the top models, and we now have at least 2, maybe 3 if you include Grok, reasoning, and 4 if you include DeepSeek, reasoning agents out there that are all showing terrific capabilities. It looks like this one is cheaper in my sort of napkin scratch math too. So they're going to give I think OpenAI a run for the money. But although it looks like O3 still has the overall best performance. The other thing is they've integrated it into one model. It's not perfect. I tried it out a little bit because you still have to do like a drop-down menu selection. But compared to OpenAI, it is a big improvement in usability from the experience level. And the coding is top notch as far as I can tell. Again, with 30 seconds of looking at a couple of articles read. And that's where Claude appears to be making its mark. They are going for the coding market. They've said they did more for general purpose reasoning on this one. So we'll see where it goes. It is a product announcement, so we'll see. But the performance measures are terrific. And yeah, this is where the world is going. So I think this is at least important, if not essential.
All righty. Remember, time-wise, we're in the red zone here. So any absolutely essential things? I'm gonna head toward essential with this thing. I think.
Yeah,
Essential. John.
I guess the one thing I'd add also, which is part of Anthropic's strategy, is the software development tool Cursor already has this integrated. Perplexity already has this integrated. Like, you can see how quickly as they come out with these models, are just really spreading through the entire ecosystem as that baseline coding model that people are working from. So I would definitely say at least important.
But Claude is integrated with enterprises and used quite a bit in enterprises through the platforms like AWS. And so I think Claude, this model it's essential to know that they have this level. Yeah. And it's good performance essential. Yeah. So that's why essential in my book, John.
All righty. Excellent. Adam, you want to give us the toad here?
Yep. I'll share my screen. We'll get the final tally. Here you go, John. You can bring that up. Thank you.
All right. All right. Here we have it. Important, optional, important, essential, optional, essential, 3 essentials. Rise of artificial intelligence, JP Morgan, experts stunned, and Claude's extended thinking. All right. So we have adaptation, adoption, both very important. Any announcements? All right. See everybody tomorrow. Thanks for playing.